Hey, this is David Mansour. I am a mortgage loan originator for Homebridge Financial. I've been in the business for 22 years. I spent half of that working for the banks. So I've worked at different banks as a mortgage loan officer in-house. And the other half I've spent as a small mortgage loan officer for a mortgage bank. Not a broker, a little bit different, but just a mortgage lender. So I want to tell you the differences and why I think it's important to go with a mortgage lender, what I've learned in my history and the big differences that I don't think people take account for. And some of the things that I hate to use the word took advantage of, but, definitely worked on our side when we were with the bank. So a lot of people felt like when you went with a bank that you had some sort of special relationship, special favor, but there's a lot of guidelines in the mortgage industry that actually prevent a bank from treating any customer different than any outside customer. So they weren't able to provide any special pricing, any underwriting guidelines, anything like that. They could not do that differently for any buyers, whether they banked with them or not. So that was a big difference that I don't think people knew about. And obviously, we made people feel that way when I did work there. So the other thing is a person that works for a mortgage company is typically 100% commission, which makes them a business owner. Even though we're working for different mortgage companies, I work inside and I don't own the company I work for. We are 100% commission. I'm a business owner, so I manage my expenses. Also, I manage my reputation. So it's very important that I close the deal. I don't get paid if I don't close. It's important that we close deals. It's important that we are on time with our closings and everything goes smoothly. Because if we don't provide a very high level of service, then we don't get the next transaction. Whereas if you're dealing with a bank, the next one's coming right through the door because they bank there. So customer service, we all talk about it, but it's not as important when your livelihood doesn't depend on it. Creativity and flexibility is a big deal. Banks are a little more conservative. They, typically want to make sure that everything is lined up and perfect. They've got shareholders, et cetera, that make sure that everything is followed to a T. So there's not a lot of creativity and flexibility with the mortgage banks. And relationships. Your mortgage banker, if they're local in the community, they have a relationship typically with the lender. They have a relationship with the appraiser and title company. And that can come into play if your transaction kind of goes a little bit sideways. Then you want somebody that has a relationship that can go to bat for you. And then pricing is a big deal. Most mortgage companies, most pricing is very similar across the board from one mortgage company to the other, very, very similar. But for the A+ customer, a lot of your mortgage bankers, like Homebridge, we're risk-based price. So the higher the credit score, actually the better the interest rate. So whereas a lot of your credit unions and banks, it's one rate across the board for our 760, 780 plus customers, then they're actually seeing a little bit better interest rate. So several different reasons. I think it's important. Your turn times, I'm going to attach an article about how in times like this where we're seeing the lowest interest rates of the year, some of the banks and credit unions are kind of caught. I think the article is titled flat-footed because they laid off or they didn't hire because they weren't expecting the volume increase. And we've seen a lot of refinances lately. The production market going through this winter is actually up pretty good. So, our turn times are still 30 days and under, where a lot of your banks and credit unions have moved to 45, 60 days, and they don't differentiate between a refinance or a purchase. So, turn times are important. You seem to learn a lot of this as you go through the process when it's a little bit too late. But, just kind of think through it, and as you're experiencing it, know that when you ask those questions, you find out those turn times and those rates and products that you might see an advantage with a local mortgage banker. So comment below, ask me if you have any questions. I'm hoping or happy to help and discuss anything with you. Bye-bye.